acolytes coming into the Dark Temple, visited by Mara Jade, Luke Skywalker, and Kyle Katarn, and so many of the Force sensitives like yourself. I'm Lord Dagovere, fam, and it's so good to see you. Let's freaking go. How y'all doing today? Let's go. I got my Revan shirt. I got my Revan shirt today. I gotta rep my boy. Again, another Games Con, and no Knights of the Old Republic remake trailer. So we're pouring one out today for you boys. All right. So I want everyone, make sure you got something to drink in the chat. You know, this is just cranberry and watermelon juice, nothing crazy. But yes, we gotta go. Yeah, let's go. Yeah. Hello there, coming in, Skywalker Academy, Logan the Legend himself. Hello there, Leon. How you all doing today? Can I get, for the first time today, ready up? Ready up. Let's go, man. Did you guys see my Lord of Hunger shirt? Even though I talk so much shit about Nihilus. Press 1 if you've seen my Nihilus shirt. I gotta know. Yo, Fateful Media coming in the stream. Make sure you all welcome Fateful with a ready up inside the chat. Let's go. Let's go. Love to see it, man. Yes. All right, let me show you guys one more time. 1 second. Hang on 1 second. Shit! Look at that. Look at that. If you can't see what it says, it says just like it says in KOTOR. Yeah, that's our shirt right there. Yeah, there's a massive wound on that shirt. Yeah, dude. I know how many. It's so funny because I get so much shit online about how much shit that I talk about Nihilus, and they don't understand that I too also like the character. So I think it's really funny how often people get really upset about it. But hey, man. So today's subject is going to be whether or not the Jedi are evil. And I think this is so funny to me because because like it doesn't matter to me what's actually happening here. Not my face, but are the Jedi evil? Man, I can't like take a lot of people seriously when I get their comments in the comment section saying that the Sith are better than the Jedi. The Sith are about freedom. The Sith are the better faction, and the Jedi are evil. It's crazy the amount of stuff, man. So yeah, it's a lot of yeah. You know, but we're gonna go over that today. That mug, you guys like the mug? Yeah, I got the Mythosaur. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know, so I went to Galaxy's Edge a couple weeks ago, and they were selling a brand new Mythosaur mug. And, you know, I always assume that people do not, you know, read as much lore as me, right? So I always like talk casually to them. And then so I saw the new Mythosaur mugs, and I was like, oh, you have a Mandalorian mug. And the one guy that was working there was like, it's not a Mandalorian mug. It's a Mythosaur mug. And I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a Mythosaur mug. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my God. It was... and then I was talking about the tongs to him, and he had no idea what I was talking about. So I thought it was like really funny. But I really appreciate people that try You know, like there's so many times where I'll go to Galaxy's Edge, and a lot of all the cast members there used to be, not anymore, used to be so in character. Like they would like tell you everything. They would have stories. Now it's very casualized. Like they just got kind of like sick of it, and it's really sad to see. But that guy was like really going in. I really appreciated his character, you know. And I don't know, man. It makes it more fun, you know, for me when I visit. It's fun. I love that mug. Yeah, George Saviot did nothing wrong. Bonkrell did nothing wrong. Anakin did nothing wrong. It is hard being so knowledgeable about anything nowadays. Yeah, I mean, like, bro pulled the well. Actually, dude, he did. I can't. Oh my gosh. You know, I think it's so funny where like I'm making videos, you know, especially with like recently where, and I have to vent to you guys today. I'm probably gonna vent to you guys today, where I'm making so many videos about like the Jedi or this certain thing or this Sith thing, and then there's like so many people that are like, that's not true. You know that there's this video and it's about how the Jedi could be masters and you had to teach them, so that's not why they're a master. And I was like, yeah, I know. I made a video on that, you know. Thank you. I really appreciate that. It's just, I don't know, man. It's interesting to see. And it's nothing against, like, anyone. Because I feel like we're all just talking at the end of the day. We're all just, we see something, we talk, we react. I think the human race is very reactionary. And I just also think that it's really funny because how much we say we care. Especially someone like me, right? Where I say I care so much about Star Wars, but that I can't take 2 seconds to look at this person's profile and look to see if they've talked about certain things, or look to see if this is a person that I should converse with or I shouldn't, you know? And I always think it's really interesting how people always try to tell you facts like you don't know them, you know? Or they just try to fight with you like you want to fight, you know? I think it's very interesting how many people online, especially online, they always want to do that. More Daga smear propaganda. Yeah, bro, I got it all in there. That's why I'm putting it in the chat now. So, Logan, you can go ham with whatever you want. Faithful Media says, because most do not want to understand. Yes, I agree. 100% Faithful. I think that is 100% correct. You know? Yeah, I like, so... all right, so this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about whether or not the Jedi are evil. Obviously, the Jedi are not evil. But the Jedi are severely flawed to the point in which that I feel like the prequel trilogy did irreversible damage to the Jedi, the ideas of the Jedi. Anakin Skywalker did irreversible damage to the Jedi. There's so much comics, so many books, so much expanded universe material that does irreversible damage to the Jedi, you know? We can go on day and night about how many things that are wrong with the Jedi, especially in the old expanded universe. Dooku Jedi Lost is a new canon book, and I think that book is not talked about enough because if anyone else has read Dooku Jedi Lost, please let me know and help me out, because basically what happens at the end of that novel is they find out one of the Jedi is actually pregnant. And Yoda is all like, I don't know why she wouldn't have told us. We would have helped her. And Count Dooku is like, are you sure you would have helped her? And then Yoda is all like, yeah, totally. We totally would have helped her. But the reason why she did all these things is because she truly felt like they were not going to help her. You know? And it's one of the most interesting stories I think that we've gotten in new canon. But again, it's one of those things where it's the prequel trilogy, and you really start to see how the entire Jedi Order is coming undone. And it's really sad, because it's stories like that, while they're amazing, I think they also help these people online with their agenda that the Jedi are evil, which is not true. I think everybody in chat, I would love for you guys to press 1 if you think the Jedi are evil. I don't think the Jedi are evil. I think it's very obvious the Jedi are the good guys, but they clearly are stuck in a political, dogmatic ideology that they've gotten consumed upon, and they are lost. Logan! Logan immediately. Order in the chat. You guys gonna have me like Chancellor Valorum? I have a vote of no confidence in Dagovere anymore, in Dagovere's domain, in Dagovere's temple. Oh my goodness gracious! Here we go, man. It's already starting. it's already starting. By the way, we actually had a positive poll today. Look at that, guys. This is the first time ever in the history of the channel where 177 people voted and 55% said that they were going to show up to the stream. So that's awesome. Usually it's vice versa, and people say that they're not coming, and they never do. So I think it's really fun. But one thing I wanted to show you guys today was actually the polls, and the polls can get really fun. Because this is exactly where I want to show you guys where a lot of this propaganda came from. And this was the poll that started it. Should the Jedi have stopped recruiting children? I have a huge problem with the idea of recruiting children. And when you read specifically, my microphone is on the book. But when you read the Jedi Path book, the Jedi Path book goes over just about everything in recruitment for the Jedi. And one of the worst things about the idea of the recruitment is that, one, if you're inside the territory of the Republic, every single baby that is born has to get blood samples. Those blood samples are because they need to keep a record of everyone's M count. And then if there is potential of this M count being force sensitive, the Jedi are sent over to wherever these younglings are and check to see if they're force sensitive, and if they show great potential, they are going to ask to take these children away. With the approval of the parents, they take these children away and they become Jedi. Now, it's not about a debate about whether or not these families are unfit, because clearly there are opportunities out there for the Jedi to take these children and better their lives. My problem with this idea of recruitment of children comes from a very specific instance, and in my opinion, it's probably the most radical of the instance. But after these kids are taken away, they have the initiate trials. The initiate trials basically allow them to become Padawans. Now, if they don't pass these trials, and if they fail to connect with a master or a Jedi Knight in the temple, they're not going to become a Padawan. They have to go into the course. And it's basically like agricultural and farming and exploration and archivists, and also I think it's the hospital wing, where you're helping out and everything going on with, like, force healers and stuff like that. If that is not possible either, at that moment the council can decide, even if you pass the trials, this comes directly from the book, even if you pass the trials, the Jedi Council can literally say, you know what? The Force is no longer with you, and you don't belong as a Jedi anymore. At that moment in time, you're basically kicked out of the Jedi Temple. It doesn't say you're kicked out. What it says is you are no longer allowed to remain in the temple. That, to me, is getting kicked out, So even if you pass the trials, the High Council can literally just say, you know what, we're not really seeing the future of the Force with you. You got to go. Even though we totally recruited you and took you away from your biological parents, and you've spent more time with us now, you got to go. I think that is absolutely insane, man. Absolutely insane. Of course, this is the most radical of the instance, but I think that alone, is such a flawed ideology. Like, that is just such a terrible thing to do to these children. And that is why I can't agree with the idea of them consistently recruiting only children. Does that make sense? I hope it makes some sense. So I'll get into the questions. So here we go. So Logan with his with his 11111. But nowhere near Sith. Yeah, I agree. Hello there. Logan says there's a cycle of blindness by dogma and politics, but this is also exacerbated by Sith meddling. Yes, another great point, Logan. Absolutely. Leon says, if I had to choose between being a Jedi or a Sith, I choose Jedi because the dark side is like a drug. Thank you, Leon. My God, man, you guys are freaking going, and I love it. Hello there, says Kiati. Kiati flamethrower scene was probably one of the only scenes that really convinced me. Sith all day being worse. Yeah. It's just the Sith are, especially like, dude, I'm a Sith boy. You know, I love the Sith, and it's specifically Darth Bane's path of destruction and him finding Revan's holocron, where Revan is talking about like, listen, you can't have more than one apprentice. Okay, that's the whole reason of the Sith. When you choose that Darth title, you are basically saying that you are the fittest, you are the strongest, and only the strong survive. And that's when Bane dissects the Sith code, and then realizes it's about power. It's about slavery. And the slavery part is being a slave to power. That no matter what the instance is, you're always trying to become more powerful than everybody else. Only the weak, only the strong, only the weak serve the strong. And that's the whole point, is that the strong are going to use the weak no matter what, in any way that they desire. Any way that they desire. That is slavery, bro. You know, so I just can't in good conscience, like, take anyone seriously that says the Sith are good guys, you know, or that the Sith are better people. I just think that's a complete misunderstanding, a fundamental misunderstanding of the Sith ideology. It is very clear that the Sith are evil, especially when you start to look at their code and dissect what Revan and Bane created. So I can't good conscience. Yeah, Logan did not hesitate. Yeah, yeah, he's our boy, though. Faithful Media says, so they can just go home after all that, but only if they have no force ability can they help without. So, all right, so what it says is that everything that you have learned, you can use, but your equipment is theirs. You know, so you can't take your lightsaber, you can't take, you know, the Jedi robes and things like that. Only in special, like, instances, like, for instance, I think Dooku took his lightsaber. And a couple other, I think Jolie in Knights of the Old Republic also left the Order. He was kind of like a Padawan and left, if I remember correctly. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. But I think he also had his lightsaber. But again, it was a really weird instance where he was able to do it. So that was like one thing that I had to realize when I was watching and playing that game, that he was basically had the knowledge of a Padawan. So is he really a Jedi? Because he only had a power of the knowledge of a Padawan? But yeah, in that instance, they have to go. But it says directly that they can use what they've learned from the temple of their many years to help themselves and other people. I mean, like, okay, great. Well, you know, you failed college, but we can't take away all the knowledge that we've given you, so good luck. You know, that's how I see it. You know, it is what it is. But yeah, at that point in time, I guess they can go back, but like the whole problem I have with that, Faithful, is like you're going back to parents that you don't even know. You've literally spent more time with the Jedi, your fellow initiates and younglings. That is your family now, and now they are gone. You know, it's really, it's not so great to me. You know, and I've always kind of struggled with that idea. Leon says you can have a story where a Jedi is legitimately the main villain and not a Jedi fall into the dark side either. Yes, I agree. Although I feel like it'd be really hard for a Jedi to be the villain and not be consumed by the dark side. I mean, he could be a dark Jedi, he could be tainted, he could be lost, he could be fallen. There's a lot of titles, especially when you get into the old source books for like I think it's Power of the Jedi. It goes really into detail about like those specific ones. I've done a video on it before, but yeah, it's really interesting. Gotta take my cranberry and watermelon juice. Leon says also their logic is so ass backwards sometimes. Yeah, but here's the thing too, right? Is I'm sure you guys have heard of the Sith genocide, and the Sith genocide, as this goddamn ice cream truck continues to pass at 8 o'clock at night, singing the most terrifying songs. The Sith genocide is something that, like, people have always tried to blame on the Jedi. And that is just something I can never get behind, because Star Wars: The Old Republic came out, and it was the Journal of Master Grenal, and he was basically the character that created to basically help narrate the events of Star Wars: The Old Republic and get everybody up to date on everything that was going on. And one of the ones that he talks about, of course, is the Sith War. And this is Naga Sadow. This is like the Sith purebloods. And what he says in that is that the Republic retaliated from the attack on Coruscant and the Hyperspace Wars, and there was the Sith genocide. Now, he specifically says Sith genocide. And for so long, so many people had believed that the Jedi had gone out and literally killed women and children to the point of death. But that has been like retconned over. There's one book that I think specifically talks about it. It is the I think it's the Essential Guide to Warfare, and then the Essential Guide to the Force, and also the Essential Guide, the Essential Atlas talks about how it's no longer the Jedi at this point that did these things. It was the Sith were so overwhelmed that because they didn't want to be taken surrender, they started basically committing suicide as they were fighting. You know, basically like kamikaze stuff. It was all about self-sacrifice and making sure that they were not taken prisoners. So it's gotten to this point where there are so many people trying to say that the Jedi went out to do this, but I think that's the problem when you create the expanded universe and George Lucas isn't creating every story. Because even in the Jedi's like worst depiction in the prequels, I can never see them committing genocide. I think that's actually very anti-Star Wars. I just can't agree with a Jedi committing genocide. I mean, Anakin obviously is a problem, but he's not a Jedi. You know, he's fallen to the dark side. And we're talking about like actual Jedi going out and killing women and children. And I just think that is very anti-Star Wars. A lot of people have pointed to me to the Tales of the Jedi comics because Odan says like, oh, well, you know, we fought them basically to the point of extinction. And that's a specific line that he says in Tales of the Jedi to Nomi Sunrider. But he doesn't say that the Jedi made like, you know, killed them off to extinction. He basically says that they fought them, you know, until they went extinct. And I feel like the wording is so vague that it can be manipulated in a way that it seems like the Jedi are these terrible people putting Sith purebloods into camps, you know. So it's always been dodgy. I don't even know why those things exist in the first place. You know, I actually really, really, really dislike that idea. Even though I criticize the Jedi so much, I still like think that's a weird shot. Skywalker Academy says it's really sad. Actually, you train as a Jedi, build friends, and then told to leave. Exactly. You're told to leave, and because the Jedi forbid attachment, you're not really able to connect with them, I feel like. So that's always a really crazy thing. I think that there's a lot of potential there to write stories. You know, there's also The Lost, you know, the 20 Jedi that left, and Dooku is one of them. That's, you know, Keeve Trennis was also supposed to be one of them. Did they drop that storyline in the High Republic? I don't even know. I didn't even finish that, but that was the one I was really excited about. Skywalker Academy says also, that's if you know your parent. Yes, that's the other thing. That's if you know where your parents are and have a means to get to them, not like the Jedi give them credits or anything. No, I think at the very least, perhaps the Jedi would keep records of where you were picked up, but outside of that, I mean, like, I doubt the Jedi would maintain connection whatsoever. I mean, like, they didn't care about Anakin's mom, you know? How like, that's the other thing, too, is, like, people will say, like, the biggest thing that I've gotten from the video that I made, because I always do my polls in the videos, right? And the biggest, like, thing that people have been attacking me about is like, well, this isn't canon. Okay, well, I hear you, man, but, like, at the end of the day, this is attached to 40 years of the expanded universe of Legends, and there is no direct substitution for this. So I think that at the very least, you can still use this in the continuity of Star Wars until it gets replaced. And then when you look at the prequel trilogy, there are enough characteristics of the prequel Jedi that falls directly in line to what that book preaches. I don't think I'm wrong in saying that. I don't think I'm wrong in talking about something that literally has no counterpart in new canon, and that's kind of always the way I've treated canon. Until there is a substitute, this is basically canon until it's not, until it's completely erased. Hello there says, it does make sense though why they are taken as a young age, so they do not form attachments. Yes, that of course makes sense. That makes sense. I think the other thing that makes sense too is when we're talking about the recruitment of children, you also need to keep tabs on these individuals. I think the most important thing that on paper, right, when you look at this is a very great idea for the Jedi because they need to keep tabs on Force sensitives. You have to understand at the end of the day too, what did the Jedi create? They indirectly created the Sith. Yo, what is up, Connor? This is like the perfect stream for you to be a part of right now, man. So that's the whole point of what I was talking about. Is like the idea of them recruiting children, taking their blood samples, and keeping tabs on them. You got to make sure there's no renegade Sith. I was actually talking to Jedi Connor with this. By the way, everybody welcome David and Jedi Connor with a ready up in the chat. I was talking about Jedi Connor with this on our podcast. Is like, what if someone is going out and recruiting these children that the Jedi just completely forgot about and slowly, secretly raising a dark-sided army or even a renegade Force user army? How are you going to know? That's in my opinion one of the most important things about the Jedi keeping tabs on all these Force sensitives. You can't just allow the other faction, a terrorist organization, to go out in the galaxy, especially around the Outer Rim, and just start abducting Force-sensitive children and training them to the point that they're radicals. Like, I think that is even more effective than the Sith, because the Sith are only doing this with two people that we know. There could be renegade Sith out there. There could be renegade Darksiders that are radical branches of the Sith because they just didn't want to deal with the ideology of Revan and the rule of two. I think that there's so much opportunity of destruction of the Jedi that they have to face on a day-to-day basis. And I think recruiting these Force-sensitive children is not a bad idea on paper. On paper, except this was post-prequel era. Oh, wait, Logan says, I like to think that Dagan Gara's plan. Oh, yeah, that was post. Yeah, that was too late. That was too late. And Dagan Gara was in the High Republic, if I remember correctly. He was the one that literally started doing his crystal thing in front of Cal Kestis. But I think that, dude, every time I watch that scene, I think that scene is so uncomfortable, man. Like, because, all right, hear me out. I think that bleeding is very, I think it has this, it has a very similar intimacy as sex. I genuinely believe that you are connecting to the Force in a very intimate way. What, dude? No, I'm serious. I'm serious, Leon. I'm so serious. What are you doing to the crystal? It is no. I guarantee you. What are you doing to the crystal when you cleanse it? When it goes white, you are literally cleansing it of all impurifications, right? Imperfections, right? It's like the highest form of this. What do you do? What do you do with the crystal? When you bleed it red, you're injecting all of these emotions forcibly. It is a very scary and terrifying experience for the crystal that is alive, that you are forcing yourself into to make it and change it for the rest of its life. It is a very terrifying experience for that crystal. So when Dagan Gera is literally waking up for the first time and he is so filled with hatred in front of Cal Kestis, and that's what he does to his crystal, dude, I think he is one of the craziest characters of all time in Star Wars. That he's just doing that ish right there. Like, the dude can't even wait for a moment to have to get away from everybody and and he's just doing that right there in front of Cal. Like, bro, no, you are witnessing this. The crystal is witnessing this. The Force is witnessing this. I'm making a statement today. I that is, especially the way how things are connecting, dude. Yes, Leon, that's exactly what I believe. That's my view, but yeah, that is, to me, that is in definition. I feel like how crazy that scene is, man. Like, it's just, yeah, it puts a whole nother level on bleeding for me, which is why I like, man, this is interesting. Yeah, but it's also terrifying, because at the end of the day, what is the Force? It's connected to everybody. You're connected. You're connected. You're connected. How are you connected? Mentally, physically, intimately, through DNA. Yeah, that's just how I've honestly felt about the bleeding stuff, and I don't know, man. I think it's a little too much sometimes, especially that part. I think that part was wild when I saw that when I was playing Jedi Survivor, man. SE explains that crystal riders are the souls of the crystal. Yeah, especially the more that they talk about Kyber, and crystals and lightsabers, and the Force is connected. It's a very interesting aspect that I think that they probably need to stop trying to find ways to define it, because I think the more that they try to define it and explain it, I think that actually starts making people have crazy ass takes like that. So I think they just need to let it go, and maybe not let it happen anymore. Maybe stop with the bleeding, but I don't know. That could just be me. Skywalker Academy says that's why I feel like bleeding is more. It's really dark. Yes, it is. Yes, it is very, very dark. But then of course there's what Ahsoka does with the crystals, and she makes them white. That of course is something on a higher being, which I think is really interesting, because those white crystals. I mean, like, that's not happening with every other Sith, or every other Jedi. So it's like a whole other ascension of knowledge. It's really, really interesting. It's completely opposite of what Vader does or Darren Gara does, and everybody else. It's very interesting. Logan says Lauren Pava was fired from the temple because his son training there was conflict of interest and a distraction. And what's also interesting too is if you guys read Tales of the Jedi comics, right? Logan knows what I'm talking about. Nomi Sunrider was a wife who had a child and a husband. She was married to a Jedi. She saw her husband get murdered by literal street robbers, and then picked up the lightsaber and defended herself and saved her child. And because of that, she never wanted to be a Jedi. She didn't want to have anything to do with lightsabers, or the Order, but she was strong in the Force. And, through her entire character arc, she basically was fighting back the idea of training in the Force and becoming a Jedi because she had a daughter. She ends up becoming one of the most powerful Jedi in all of Star Wars. She becomes one of the most powerful Grand Masters in all of Star Wars. This is also while having a daughter who also becomes a very powerful Jedi. So, in my opinion, the idea of just recruiting children, I think, is a very flawed ideology. And then, of course, in New Jedi Order, post Return of the Jedi, what is Luke doing? He is practically letting in anybody and everybody that is Force sensitive, because the Republic does not have the resources just to bring in children like they used to in the Old Republic. It can work. It can work. Clearly, there are problems, and there's gonna be issues, especially with people who are older and younger, and have attachments and love and everything else. But to say that it doesn't work because of the idea of attachment, I think is the stand-alone reason why the Jedi were doomed from the start, because they clearly did not figure out how to evolve. And Yoda himself says that that the Jedi Order failed because he did not allow it to evolve. This is something he says in the Revenge of the Sith novel, and I think it says a lot about him, the Jedi Order, and how everything probably would have been very different if we would have seen some type of evolution from the Jedi. You know, that's always something that I've always believed, especially after reading that book. If you have not read the Revenge of the Sith novelization, you are missing out. Fateful Media says, so basically you're forcing yourself into the Kyber, but in Legends they are not sentient. It's they are, but they aren't. It's nowhere near it's very different in Legends, I feel like. Ryoku says, I actually think if you're bonded with the crystal, it's therapeutic. Yes. The positive experience, yes, 100%. In my opinion, it's like dealing. I might be showing my age here. In my opinion, it's like being in a toxic relationship and then being in a normal relationship. You really only understand how toxic and abusive the relationship was when you're in a normal relationship, and you start to realize, like, wow, I don't have to worry about all these things. This is actually what normal is supposed to be. There are so many side effects that you realize that you have after you get out of a toxic and abusive relationship. And I feel like that's the whole therapeutic part of, like, I guess when Ahsoka attunes to that higher level of plane where the crystal just purges itself of imperfections and becomes the highest representation of the Force, which I guess is a white blade, which is also really interesting. Hello there says, I thought that was cool. I think that explained in detail in the Ahsoka book. Just haven't read it in a while. Yeah, I haven't read it because I felt like it got retconned, so I don't know. I'll have to look back. Logan says, Coruscant blinded the Jedi. It was a lifeless world filled with suffering and greed, and it was the antithesis of a world rich in the living Force and cut the Jedi from its flow. Which is interesting because in the Plagueis novel, Plagueis is like, dude, Sidious, you can't just walk around on Coruscant because it's literally light-sided potent and dominant because there's so many Jedi now. It's like the Jedi basically made it Force-sensitive. And then, of course, when you read Heir to the Empire, Coruscant is a very dark-sided planet to the point where, like, Luke admits, like, dude, like, this person is gone, and even still today, I feel his presence here, which is really crazy. But I kind of feel like Coruscant was always dark-sided, and the Jedi just didn't realize how much of the dark side was being affected by them. Then, of course, you go about the temple. That's below them and everything else. Yeah, it's a lot of craziness, and it gets really complicated, man. Ugh. But yeah, that's why they go on Ossus, which I think is another great idea, because who figures that out? Luke Skywalker, and he disconnects everybody from the politics later, and they still have issues, but it's something that he finally realized that they should do, and they go to Ossus. Faithful Media says, Nomi Sunrider, first Jedi mommy in Star Wars who breaks the Jedi mold and is a great mother with a high rank, and she was one of the first. It's so crazy to me. I've always said this, and you can probably go back on the streams where I literally say the same thing. It's so crazy to me in an era of where we're trying to get strong female leads, that Nomi Sunrider is not a character that we have tried to make new stories about. When you go back and read the Tales of the Jedi comics, she has those stories, and that's it. There is not much more. I think she's got one of the greatest stories in Star Wars. She's literally like one of my favorite Jedi of all time. Of all time, man. Like, she's literally creating some of the most powerful feats in all of Star Wars, to the point where she's literally cutting people off from the Force itself. I feel like that's where Avatar: Last Airbender got that idea from, because those comics were made in 1993, before so many of the people that even watched that show were born. Okay? Like, Nomi Sunrider was doing it before a lot of you were born. Man, Nomi Sunrider is a dog. Nomi Sunrider is a dog, man. Nomi is chopped. Get out of here. Get out of here, Logan. The Jedi finally literally directly created the Sith. Yes, exactly. And I think that's the reason why that they have to, go out there and recruit people and take their blood and things like that. Yeah, it's a lot. My favorite novel, other than the Darth Plagueis novel. Let's freaking go. Skywalker Academy says, I think the Jedi lacked the idea of emotional intelligence, played a part in my mind. Understanding your emotions and learning how to express them in a healthy way. But that's exactly what I'm talking about, Is like, how do the Jedi know what normal is, and again, we're not attacking the Jedi. We're not saying that the Jedi are evil. Okay, we're definitely not saying that the Jedi or the Sith are better than the Jedi. What we're saying is, how do the Jedi know what normal is, especially when they are not consistently allowing themselves to fall in love. I think, in my opinion, you always hear the criticism about Anakin falling in love, and that no, it's not the relationship that was wrong. It's about him having control over Padme. I don't think that is the correct take. I don't think that is the correct take. I think anyone that is deeply in love with someone and wants to have kids with them and wants to have a future will feel the fear that Anakin was feeling about not just losing his mother, but also losing his wife that had a child, telling him that he can't control his emotions, that he shouldn't be feeling the lust to save her. I think is ridiculous. I think what you can say is that what can happen will happen, and you are a Jedi, and you have to handle this. I think that's better advice than what the whole movie has been, and everybody else has been criticizing Anakin for, because that's the whole point. Is Anakin is also supposed to be this very emotionally unstable person. A lot of people say he's human, but let's be honest, he has mental illness. He definitely has abuse. He was a former slave. There's a lot of things that I just don't think were going to work for Anakin in the first place. But I think, at the very least, seeing that happen to the love of your life, who is also bearing your child, I don't think anyone can really help him out, because I think also none of the Jedi are in that position, because they don't know he's in that position, But even if they were in that position, I just don't think it's a reality that you can tell Anakin what he's feeling or how he should feel, because no one understands what he's going through, And I think that criticism about that is, they really don't understand that whole point, is that no one can understand what Anakin's going through. That's the whole point. That's the whole tragedy of the movie, and that's why he falls. He made some stupid ass decisions, but ultimately he was also being manipulated by the devil. So everybody lost. Fateful Media says, if the Jedi of old had showed a junta and the others had to use the Force better instead of corrupting it, could they remade the Jedi Order? No, because the Jedi Order also failed. So I get a lot of that too about the Gray Jedi stuff. Well, the Jedi used to do this on the moon of Bogan and Ashla and everything like that. Yeah, but the whole point of that comic is showing you that the Jedi have no idea what they're doing. It's been years of this, and they're losing people to the Tython. I can't remember what the abyss is called, the Void, whatever it is. They're losing people to the Void. These people that are on Bogan are dipping more and more to the dark side. In the first, they're literally dipping. Hey, don't get too angry. You're gonna dip the scale like it's a Knights of the Old Republic. They, in my opinion, the Jedi are way more flawed than the actual Jedi Order, and because of that idea of the Jedi, guess what happens? They create the Jedi Order after the Rakatans are gone, and then guess what happens after that? The schisms. It's all connected. The Jedi are still the Jedi Order. They're just an evolutionary state. And, the idea of trying to ask a Junta Pol and the Legions of Leto and everybody, hey, stop doing this drug. You shouldn't do that. Why don't you do this? In the mind of an addict, that's not going to help. And I think that's the whole point, is when they were already curious, and then they became susceptible to the curiosity, and then they succumb to it. That's it. The drug is in their blood. They can't get it out of it. They're already addicted. And I think that's the whole point. It was over. It's over. I think that's why Anakin's story is so beautiful at the end of the day, is because he's one of the very few that breaks those chains. And he's a terrible person. He's a murderer. He did all these things. He choked his wife out, but the whole point of that 6-movie arc is to show that he is one of the only people that broke it because of his son and the very final chance of his life to bring back balance to the Force. And that's what's supposed to make Anakin more special than others outside of the prophecy. But that's the whole point, I feel like, of atonement. You look Keldroma, again, one of the very few to do that, you know? And they all end the same. Kylo Ren, same thing, you know. There really is only a few, I feel like, and that's the whole point, I guess, of the schisms, is that at the end of the day, the Jedi's ideology was always biting them in the ass in some way, and they created their own the own reason that they were going to go extinct. So I guess there was no escaping it at the end of the day. Wasn't the Sith Temple under the Jedi Temple? Yes, it was. It happened very early. Yeah, very, very early in Coruscant's lifespan. It was really crazy. Skywalker Academy says, bring Nomi Sun right into live action and animation. It's crazy to me that it hasn't happened yet. I don't know why. Leon says Mark Hamill voices Fire Lord Ozai. Yes, I know. I remember it. Nomi, the original Avatar. Yes. I guarantee you they got that power from her. You look that stuff up and you're like, what the flip? You know. Leon says, one of the coolest characters, if not the coolest character in that show. Hello there says, I still want to know Yoda and Yaddle's species. Yeah, I don't think that should be said. I like the idea of them being guardians of the Force or something. I've always liked that theory. But I think that it should stay hidden. I think sometimes Star Wars is best when it's not explained. And I really enjoyed the idea of them being, you know, who knows, almost like conduits of the Force. I think that's pretty cool. Fateful says, actually, normal for the Jedi is quite different as normal for other beings in the galaxy. And Shatterpoint Mace Windu says that the Jedi are trained from birth to be able to replace their primal instincts. Yes, exactly. Which is an amazing book, by the way. I think it's also written by Matthew Stover, since he's such a great writer for Mace. He's a very, very good writer for Mace. Yeah, I love that book. I love the idea of Shatterpoint, and that's exactly. See, Fateful, you get it. You understand. Is like when people say, "Oh, just be normal, just communicate." I mean, like, dude, but like the whole idea of the Jedi is that they're not normal. There's nothing normal about the Jedi, guys. That they're literally space wizards, space wizard monks. There's nothing normal about that. You know, they're literally like the least amount of people in the population of the universe. You know. Even people in the galaxy during the highest peak still had no idea what a Jedi is. There's nothing normal about the Jedi, including the way that they operate. And even if you look at Anakin and Kenobi's relationship, in my opinion, that where it's like they're brothers, right? And even still, it's not normal. You know, it's still not normal, especially in the circumstances. So, I don't know. Yeah, just sad. They really struggled. Yes, they did. When faced with Carvastar and his primal nature and instincts, Skywalker Academy says they failed to learn from the past but adapt to changing the galaxy. Leon says, I take Yoda prequel any day. What do you mean you take it? Like, you're going to find him? What do you mean? Or you take Yoda in general as your boy? The Skywalker Academy says, over-explaining can ruin the mystery and the mythical nature of Star Wars. Yes, and I think that's what's happening to the bleeding. I like the idea of bleeding, but I do not want to know the intricacies of how it works. You know, I think they've already said enough, and I think they've already shown it too much. You know, I like the idea of. I thought it was best in the Trials of the Jedi book and the Vader comics. I think those are the best two instances of bleeding, where Vader does it. With after Master Karak's Kyber crystal, and then I can't remember that guy's name. What was that guy's name? The rogue Darksider, and then he basically bleeds the crystal. They say he was a Sith, but I didn't feel like he was a Sith. He was definitely a Darksider. I can't remember, but what was his name? He was at the end of the High Republic, but he basically takes the crystal and he's looking at it, and he's so filled with rage. He's a blind Force user, dark side, and then he ends up bleeding the crystal with no one around. And I thought that was really the way the books explains it was beautiful. But then again, I think that's Charles Soule, and Charles Soule does a really good job. Yeah, it's pretty sick. Leon says they might reveal more about Yoda's species in the Mandalorian and Grogu. Yeah, we'll see. I hope not. I am expecting Grogu to literally have a growth spurt in that. I think that's the whole reason why the movie was made. Hello There says, also crazy looking back on that 13-year-old led the clones in the war. What are you talking about, like Ahsoka? Or in general? Or I'm trying to see. Hello There says, live action Ahsoka did a good job showing how she actually was. Yes. And you know what's so funny in the in the Essential Guide to Warfare? Yeah, growth spurt. Yeah. Yes. So in the Essential Guide to Warfare, I'm gonna try to find this piece of art real quick. They tried. Logan, have you seen this piece of art? I'm pretty sure you have. I think it's in the note that Ahsoka writes. I can't remember. Is it Rex or somebody? I can't remember who it is. No. It's okay. So there is a piece of art. Okay. So first off, I'm gonna show you this one. All right. First off, I'm gonna show you this piece of art. Okay. So you see Ahsoka here. Right? Clearly like 12, right? Now, I'm going to show you another piece of art where it's supposed to be the same era for Ahsoka, and she literally looks like she's like much older. I think this is it. Hang on. I think it's because of Tommy Lee Edwards. Yes. Okay, yeah. So, I don't know why. I don't know why they made her look like this. I don't know why. Tommy Lee Edwards is literally one of the best artists. This does not look like Ahsoka is 12 years old. That face does not look like 12. So the inconsistencies of that art in that book, I don't know who, I don't know how, Yeah, I don't know. I would have put some notes on that if I was working in that production. It's so crazy because Tommy Lee Edwards is so amazing with his art, and I would be like, hey Tommy, have you seen the Clone Wars? You know, Ahsoka's like 11 years old. You know, Leon says Ahsoka versus Darth Maul fight hits different when you see live action Clone Wars era Ahsoka. But that's how it is. You know, like there are so many people online that get so frustrated about Ahsoka being so strong. And I was like, you guys know that she not only is she Anakin Skywalker's apprentice, but she's also like fighting with Anakin. And like the most crazy, like you understand like how crazy Anakin is, right? Anakin is seen as the hero of the Republic. Anakin is beating down people, and you know who's by his side the entire time? Ahsoka. Ahsoka is throwing hands with Anakin against everybody else. Ahsoka is literally on Mortis, fighting overlords of the Force, and she dies, and then she gets resurrected by one of the representations of the light side of the Force, who a lot of people see as gods. I don't. I see them more as demigods. But still, a powerful, potent person now is inside the veins of Ahsoka, giving her life, and the most insane plot armor I've ever seen since Goku, you know. So, yeah, Darth Maul is getting absolutely bent over, and the O2 and handshake. So, it is what it is, guys. You gotta deal with it until Ahsoka is dead and gone, because it is what it is, man. They wrote this character in such a way that she's just not gonna fall over and die, you know? Faithful Media says, aliens in Star Wars be aging like Saiyans sometimes. Oh my god, I'll never forget at the end of the Majin Buu saga where like Bulma is so upset because, you know, she's got, she's got skin marks all over her face, and she's like, this is so bullshit, you guys don't age. And then Vegeta says some line like, oh yes, it's because we're Saiyans and we have to maintain our youth for fighting. And I was like, man, that's bullshit. You guys should be aging quicker because of this. Skywalker Academy says, oh, when the literally chosen one is your master, ain't no way you're not going to be powerful. But Ahsoka still had to put in the literal work. Exactly. I mean, she had no choice. The treadmill is running 60 miles an hour, and she could get off or keep running. That's how I see it. She's running. She even saved Anakin a few times too, which is crazy. Crazy for a little girl, dude. Yeah, but that's another reason why I love the Ahsoka show. I think the memories were great. I just loved all the Anakin stuff, man. I really appreciated that show. It was really good. So a talent without training is nothing. I wonder who says that, man. God, I'm gonna go watch that. I'm gonna go watch those episodes again. I think I do not like the dialogue. I do not like the first 2 episodes. I think the finale is, but there are parts where I felt like they cooked, like, they had it. Here they had it. Here the soundtrack. They had it. All right, so what I did want to show you guys today is some of these replies. So this was my thing when I did this. Should the Jedi have stopped recruiting children? So what do you guys think today? Do you think the Jedi should have stopped recruiting children? Yes or no? And I want to hear. As you guys go in, I'm going to read some of these. There was one that this guy was like completely going in on me, and he stopped after a while because he said something whack. But I'll get to it first. And he says, there's nothing wrong with recruiting children. The better question is, should they have stopped recruiting adults? And, I think there's enough examples out there about Nomi Sunrider, Luke Skywalker's Jedi Order. It's clear, including in the Old Republic as well, before the Battle of Ruusan, that the Jedi were allowing adults and other forms of older people to be Force-sensitive and trained by the Jedi. So I don't think it's a question about just children. I think that it's the type of methodology and the approach in which that you train someone to become a Force-sensitive that ultimately dictates the success and the mental stability, which I think is the most important. So I was just saying, again, this was just the idea of them only recruiting children. And so I believe the Jedi's flaws start with the idea of recruiting children. The Jedi Path book states that if the Force is present in a child, the Jedi have the legal authority to recruit them. And we've talked about this, not just in my podcast, but also in the book. It says that. The consent thing is so insane to me that the book says that some Jedi Masters believe. But the fact that it's even stated in that book is absolutely wild, and I do not know who allowed that to be written, but I think it's one of the craziest things. And so he edits his comment, and it's somewhere here where he changed it. I think it was like he says something along the lines of like, it doesn't matter, that doesn't change anything that what I said. Did he delete his comment? Oh, I think he deleted it. Unless I can't find it. Oh, I think he deleted it. Oh, interesting. Okay, well, what he says is the consent thing doesn't change anything. And I thought that was really weird. I think I even have it in my Discord. Let me see if I have it in the Discord. Give me 1 second. Let me see if I can find it, because I put it in the bad takes. I may have got this guy in 4K, by the way. Oh, look at that. I have it. The consent thing doesn't change what I said. So that is, I took a screenshot just in case, because I wanted to go over it. And I think that is really interesting, that he doesn't necessarily think that changes anything, because that's the entire point of what I was talking about, on top of just the idea of recruiting children and the instances where they kick them out of the temple. And I think that's something that needs to be changed, but he was talking about how there's a difference between recruiting children and conscripting children. There is nothing inherently wrong with recruiting children. Besides, Jedi can leave the order whenever they want. And this goes in context with what he was saying, how consent doesn't change anything in this line. And I think the consent part, it absolutely changes everything. I think that's a little whack. David Torres says, good night, fam. Got to go buy school clothes tomorrow. Yeah, man, absolutely. Thank you so much, fam. Have a good day, and good luck with the clothes and schools. Logan says, Jedi should have stopped sanitizing the children's emotions and connection to their family. Yes, I feel like, at the very least, the parents should have been updated quarterly, yearly, at least, annually in some form. I think that if the kids are, if the kids' parents at the very least had tabs on them, what is wrong with that? Well, the idea is the emotional connection in this. Yes, I understand, but these are Jedi. They have to be better than everybody else. They have to take more precaution. They have to do everything out, because if not, again, in this instance where these kids get kicked out and they're no longer a part of the Jedi Order, what happens to them now? Now they have no family. Now their purpose in life is gone. You telling me that is not a problem at all? At all? That's a problem, man. Skywalker Academy says, personally, no. I get why they do it. It makes sense, but they should prepare all initiates for the potential life without, or is that inmates? Yeah, I think it's initiates. I can't remember. For potential life without the Order. Have times where all the Jedi must live among the people. Interesting. You know what's also really cool, Skywalker Academy fam, is that in the Jedi, Logan, which book is it? I think it is the Power of the Force or Power of the Jedi source book. I can't remember. I have to see. But the one where it talks about the fallen Jedi, the tainted Jedi, and the lost Jedi, it literally talks about how Jedi become addicted to the world, the outer worldly aspects, and to me it's like technology and gambling and just life, lifestyles, that they can't be a Jedi anymore because they've just grown too fond of the pleasures outside of the temple. And I think that's really interesting because we talk about, like, Jedi have temples all over the galaxy, right? Even in New Canon, you see that in the Acolyte, right? Where there's just temples all over the galaxy. And I think it's really interesting, the idea, if, what if there was some type of task where Jedi were able to disassociate or learn how to disassociate or learn how to normalize their lives? I think it's really interesting how that would work. But then again, it kind of seems like these temples are not necessarily base camps, but, temples, shrines, but it doesn't seem like the public can really go into this stuff and interact with everybody. It just seems like people are completely isolated from society, and I think that also worsens the problem. So, yeah, Skywalker Academy, I wonder how they would operate if they were actually able to go amongst these people and check these things out and look and see what's going on with the world, how people interact with one another. But then you get attachment, and then you meet the fine, baddie over there on the planet, and there's the farming and everything, and this and that, whoa, Jedi code this, So I don't know what's gonna happen there. I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure something like that happens, in the Old Republic times, but in the prequel trilogy, I don't know, man. I don't know. Faithful Media says, a home training program could be cool. Imagine a Jedi mentor coming to your home for a few years to teach you the basics, like in Hogwarts Legacy with the main character who got magic late. Interesting. I never got to play Hogwarts Legacy. I really just wanted the game to be co-op or multiplayer of some form, so I could, go around as a Slytherin and bully the hell out of all those little shits in the. So I really wanted that game to be a multiplayer, but that's a really interesting part too. There is one instance in the Jedi Path book which I think is really cool, and it talks about a tribe of individuals who literally tried to throw rocks at the Jedi who were coming in to steal who they thought were stealing the children. They're not stealing the children. They're trying to test the children and make sure that they're okay, or they're not a menace to society, or even recruit them if possible. And apparently the tribe of people stoned the Jedi recruiters. there's also instances where the kids are seen as like demons because they're screaming and they're crying, and then they're crushing objects around them or throwing things like a possessed demon. The Jedi have to go in there and take the kid away because the village might try to exorcise or kill the child in their own spiritual beliefs. So I thought that was really interesting, and that, in my opinion, is obviously an opportunity for the Jedi to really help this child out, take them away, and change their life. Just block the stones. It's a skill issue. Oh my God, Logan. Oh my gosh, that is so funny, dude. Yeah, get out of there, man. Level 1. Skywalker Academy says, of course, Dagovere is... Yeah, I'm a Slytherin, man. I'm a Slytherin, dude. Yeah, I just... Yeah, I've been a Sith boy my whole life, man. Revan is in the Lego Rebuild the Galaxy trailer. Yes, he is. I actually... I don't know if you guys follow me on TikTok. I know a lot of you guys were saying that you don't follow... you don't do TikTok stuff, but... I have TikTok. I have 2 accounts. I have my lore account and then my face account. So if you guys go on there, I'm usually talking about stuff. So go check it out. Just find Dagovere and you'll find me. But yeah, guys, I think that is it for today. I think that we had a good discussion here. I think it was pretty good. Clearly, the Jedi are not evil, but they are severely flawed. They have issues. And please, guys, if you ever see anyone talking about how the Sith are better than the Jedi, or they are more good than the Jedi, yeah, make sure you send that person to me, and we'll talk and everything. But if you guys have any other questions, let me know. We'll do it for another couple minutes, and then we'll head out. In the meantime, guys, you guys always know shorts every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the YouTube channel. I'm uploading them around 1 p.m. now. Then we have the podcast for my boys over there at Starlight Pod. It's going to be freaking awesome. We're going to be doing it live, so make sure you guys come over there and check us out, man. It's going to be so fun. Jedi Connor was in the chat today. I'm probably going to bring him on, or Johnny, at one point in the stream. I know you guys are excited about that, but yeah, there's going to be another more Dagovere if you guys are up for that. If you guys are cool with that, by the way. You're a Sith boy, though. Yeah, I am, man. I am. I am. I try to be a Jedi as much as possible, but it's hard sometimes, Hello there says, praying they make a new Revan minifig. That would be amazing. I really want the Ebon Hawk. Like, I really want the Ebon Hawk, man. Genuinely, like, I really, really do. Hello there says, see you, fam. Thanks for the stream. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate that, That's what Anakin is. That's why Anakin is so relatable. Yeah, to a certain context. I'm definitely not going to kill children, or entire villages. It's just the misunderstanding part, Logan says, Jedi conscripted children for the Battle of Rusan. Yes, Xana and her... Yes, they did. Yes, they did. Thank you, Logan. Thank you for reminding me about that part, because that's how he finds Xana at the end of that Path Destruction book. Yes, and then you find out later, was it in the... is it Master of Rule of Two? I can't remember. Yeah. So... yeah, guys, and I think that is going to be it for today, man. You guys always know. Coming into the Dark Temple. Visited by Mara Jade, Luke Skywalker, and Kyle Katarn, and so many of the Force Sensors like yourself. I'm Lord Dagovere, and I'll see you around. Deuces.